Testing, testing.
Testing?
Testing, 1, 2, that's good.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So do you want me to leave it on?
No.
Testing 1, 2, testing.
Great. Turn it, push that up, and it goes a light. Push it up for them to talk.
Okay, and down?
Down.
Okay, up to talk and down for quiet.
It's the down button.
Hello. Here's something we're going to use today.
Just a handout. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
you're welcome.
I'm going to scoot along. And see what I do.
Hi. There's a handout for you.
Thank you.
Are you new here or no? You've been here?
About a year. Is that
No,
new?
no, but I mean, did you attend the seminar before?
No, I did not.
So you didn't
but
get-
my name is in there.
But you didn't get a book?
No.
Okay, here's a book.
Well, thank you. I need a book.
You need a book.
Everyone needs a book.
Does everyone have both a book and a sheet? Okay, I just want to make sure before we'll be starting. You don't have a book? I'm giving you a book. Just a minute.
My book, Joel. Right there.
So you're new here? Okay, you're a newbie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is the book.
This is the book that's our textbook.
Right.
Well, just a couple minutes and we'll start.
I decided that my
Pardon?
church, the Unity Church has too much bureaucracy.
So we're going to do it next month?
Hopefully that I can get through
Maybe.
the mire.
We'll see.
Mike Ware.
Well,
Any day you dance is a good day.
hi.
Hey, Bernie.
Hi. Have a seat. We're starting right now. Oh, come on in. Just in time.
It's just, okay, I don't want to run over you.
No, you're not. Just
Well-
keep going.
Whoops, excuse me.
You're okay.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Let me move it
I've got
a little
it.
bit.
I've
Yeah.
got it. You just hang on to yourself.
Okay, here's something.
Thank you.
Okay. So you have a book already?
I do. I'm all set, yeah.
Fine.
Hi,
Okay.
Betty. Excuse me.
Hello there.
Right, let me get by. I don't want to run over your feet.
That's all right, I'll stand.
Okay, good. Excuse me.
Well, who is new here, by the way? Can you raise your hands? You're new?
I'm not
You're new?
What do you mean by new?
Okay. Well, let me welcome everyone do not get discouraged about the number here. I certainly am not. We are 11. We are going to fill up this room over the months. I guarantee that. The reason I guarantee it is because what I think we can do, and you will be able to check this out yourself, is achieve the title of what the seminar is. What is the title? Fulfilling Our Infinite Potentials, Solving the World's Problems. I'm not going to solve it today, not going to solve it next week, next month, but we will make progress in both areas. I guarantee it. But you can check it out for yourself. Now, the fundamental idea behind the seminar is the whole history of the human race. A lot of progress in many different areas. Tremendous progress. I'm not putting it down. But, a big but, we have failed in two ways to go beyond a certain point with regard to a vision of human progress. A vision. There was an idea of progress, of course, we've had it. I'm not putting down all the achievements, but we haven't gone far enough. And I am claiming here and now, because of all the knowledge that we now have in 2023 and pulling it together, for the first time in human history, and this is big claims, as you well know, we have a vision of how to actually solve the world's problems and develop the human being. Huge claim I'm making, huge. And we're going to have discussion. I would love for you to challenge and ask questions and so on. But over, not just today, because the way I've planned it is from month to month. This is like a workshop. It's going to take time. But we will make progress today. Enough for you to see, my God, I'm going to continue with this. I'm going to work in between one session and the next to read the sections of the book, to work with these ideas personally. The basic idea behind this is so simple. Compared to the last 4 sessions, I've made a lot of progress in all kinds of ways, and I'll give you the stories of what I've been doing. The basic idea is so simple. It is simply this. Every single human being on the planet, everyone, 8 billion, is born with incredible capacities for continuing development with no limit. Our way of life, I call it the bureaucratic way of life, which is, for example, hierarchical, narrow specialization without the integration of knowledge, conformity, outward orientation. We have been taught all our lives, me, you, everyone, President Biden, Shakespeare, Einstein, to limit our vision. Of course, Einstein had a wonderful vision, the physical world and understanding it. I'm not talking about such a narrow vision. That's great, but it is not human development. Now I'm saying there's a Japanese proverb that will summarize what I'm talking about. Vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare. Now, the implication of that, we need both vision and action. And that's the difference between the continuing seminar and what we've done before. Action. 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 Vision is important. We've emphasized vision. The book emphasizes vision, does not emphasize action. That's what we will emphasize. Here and now. What kind of action? I'm not talking about writing to President Biden or advising him and so on. Here's one of my second co-author, Andy Plotkin, if I can find the damn thing, has illustrated the kinds of immediate concrete actions that people can take if they have the vision. He has a list of 35. Communicating with other seminar members between sessions, reading the website. And by the way, the website, I've given it to you before. In the new book, in the book that I've just given out, the 2 books, there is my card inside the cover. The website is the lower right-hand side, www. It's, forget the www, behavioral-scientists. It's not in the old book. It's the the same book, but it's only the new copies. I've given it out. But behavioral-scientists, plural.com. In that, you can find all the 4 previous discussion lectures. It's right there on tape. You can find a summary of the basic ideas in the book. So the website is really good in between our sessions. What else? Reading the website. Okay, www. 3, practicing, 4, reading the textbook. 5, reading materials referenced within the textbook. 7, examine your own past experiences. There's some very specific things. Joining an exercise group, taking on kayaking, taking on bicycling, taking up walking for exercise. Not everyone can do everything, obviously. Many of us have physical problems and so on, but there are concrete, specific things that can lead ever further toward personal development. Your dreams, things that you always wanted to do, but feel unable to do. So it's concrete things. Now, getting back to the vision and action, this is an example of actions. But what I'm talking about is no limit. To give personal examples, between last time and this time, I'm going to give, not trying to brag, but I'm simply giving, and I'm not saying that I've got it all now. You can see on my face I fell down, and I have a lot to learn, and I will hopefully continue to learn. But here's what I have done. And what I'm saying is, this is an example of what everyone can do. All right, one thing I had planned. You see, one of the important things that I'm trying to do is not to let all of this die after I die, but to get it structured within the academic world. What I'm claiming is that we have here an interdisciplinary interdisciplinary science of human behavior. All of the specialized knowledge within the various fields of having to do with human behavior. Psychology, sociology, anthropology, political science, economics, history. And within the fields, there are subspecialties too that keep within their own borders. What I'm saying is that all this can be integrated. So one of the things I've done, previously I was planning to go to a meeting of the American Sociological Association in Montreal in 2024, over a year from now. What I decided was, why wait a whole year? I'm going in 2 months to the meetings this August in Philadelphia. I've made all kinds of arrangements. What is the importance of that? I've come up with a name for a new section of the American Sociology Association, American Sociology, called Paradigmatic Sociology. This is a new section. I'll need 200 sociologists to join me, or else they don't consider it. What is paradigmatic? It goes up to the most fundamental assumptions of the way of life of people. So in particular, it's what I've talked about in the sessions last time, bureaucratic versus evolutionary. Let me stay with I'm wandering around a little. Let me stay with this basic assumptions, fundamental assumptions. Concretely, what do I mean by that? The best way of understanding it is visually. So, I showed earlier a seesaw and a stairway. The seesaw represents key aspects of our present way of life. Even though we don't like to admit it, we like to think we're far more democratic than we actually are. And the stairway, I'll tell you about that stairway. It is wide enough for the whole human race. It doesn't narrow as it goes up. There are paths from one area of knowledge to another horizontally along it. There is no reason, if we move toward a stairway way of life, for putting someone else down aggressively. What do you gain? In a seesaw, you gain. When you feel superior, you move up a little bit, not much. Unfortunately, you have to put others down somewhat. I'm not saying we're all aggressive, but I'm saying we're all hierarchical, which is not quite aggressive, but it is kind of narrow. It doesn't point toward the beautiful democratic ideals that we all have: equality, freedom, the worth of every single individual, helping others, being helped by others. The stairway does it. The seesaw doesn't. And my claim is that we are largely a stairway, a seesaw world. People wonder. We seem to have been doing so well 30 years ago, after World War II, onward and upward. What happened? No one on TV or anywhere else in books that I've heard has explained it. Why all the anti-democratic authoritarianism throughout the world now? What's happened to us? Why? Well, one of the books I've written, which is summarized, some of this stuff here is, let me get this in that other paper. Well, here's my explanation. Not the whole story, but a lot of the story. First of all, our dream of being the city on the hill, the wonderful democracy, was always exaggerated. We had a very close call in World War II. We almost failed to defeat Nazi Germany. That was a very, very close call. So we are, it's not so long ago that we gave women the right to vote. It's kind of disgraceful. And but what's happening now? Why? Well, that book that I wrote was called The Invisible Crisis of Contemporary Society. And the focus of it was on the new emphasis on media, radio, television, the internet, so that people see, well, all of the things that they want to have that some people can have and they can't afford. There's a revolution of rising expectations. Advertising emphasizes this. So the gap between what people want and what they get is increasing, continues to increase. Advertising continues to emphasize itself. That gap is frustrating. One of the major findings of the social sciences, frustration very often leads to aggression. Increasing frustration, revolution of rising expectation, gap between what people want and get. Frustration, but there's another angle to it, which is in addition. It's not just frustration. It's frustration plus a seesaw outward orientation as well. So when I'm frustrated, I'm on the seesaw, and what can I do? The only thing I can do is push up a little bit and push the other down. There is an experimental study in your book. My best student at Boston University, doctoral student, he did an experiment on entry-level students in sociology. Introductory sociology. What he did was this. He measured their degree of prejudice initially at the beginning of the semester. The degree of prejudice was sort of a link, something similar to a kind of aggression. Because the question is, can he show in the experiment the conditions under which aggression is not increased when people are frustrated versus increased? Is there something else that can stop this? And what he did is he measured whether they compared their grades to other students or the class average versus to their own previous grades. Well, the own previous grades, they're more developmental, like what we're emphasizing here. Other grades, comparing to others, is very bureaucratic. It's like an outward orientation to how am I doing compared to you or whatever. Then he frustrated them tremendously. That wouldn't be allowed the way he did it, because some people are on the edge and they might fall off. But at the time it was allowed. The way he frustrated them, he gave them a supposed aptitude test for graduate school. He flunked them miserably. They all agreed at the very end of the experiment, yes, we believed it. He was even telling them, people at Northeastern University or other Tufts or other universities around there were doing very well. They were, compared to you, my God. So, and then he gave them the after test, prejudice against Puerto Ricans. Lo and behold, the ones who compared their grades to their own previous grades, no increase in prejudice. The ones who compared their grades to others, increased prejudice. It's only one little experiment. I'm not saying that proves it totally and so on, but it shows, along with other things that I'm aware of, other studies and so on, it is possible. Think of it. We're not just talking about aggression against other people. I'm talking about war. I'm talking about racism, ageism, sexism, ethnocentrism, all of the aggressions. And let me be very clear here. Part of the reason for my enthusiasm about this whole approach, the world is not in good shape now. Something has to be done from my perspective. Where is the vision of solving the world's problems? Anywhere, in academia, elsewhere. I don't see it. Unless we come up with a solution, it's just a matter of time before the human race is gone, from my perspective. We, the living people at this time in history, bear the responsibility for all the peoples who might come after us, all the generations in the future, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. I don't think we're going to survive as a human race unless we figure out both a vision and action to fulfill the vision. Now, I've been wandering around here. Let me be a little more specific. 2:20, we'll have time for discussion. I'm not going to take all the time or even most of the time. Maybe most, but not much more than most, a little more than most. What I have given you here, we're going to go over this in this paper, is the following. The vision, the action, a summary, of course, and then the highlights of the book. The major one of them is this Levin experiment that I emphasize here, pages 114 to 116. But there's the highlights of the book right here at the bottom. But the poem is wonderful, providing we interpret it correctly. Okay, now we're going to get to the poem, but let me make sure I've got it all. I've touched on the basic ideas, so I want to summarize what I've said in these 15, 20 minutes before getting to the poem. The basic idea: human beings have incredible potential that is unfulfilled. The fundamental worldview, way of life we have is bureaucratic, with its emphasis on hierarchy, narrow specialization, conformity. Takes you away from yourself. But the individual is fantastic. So we have to learn to come back to ourselves and move away from the bureaucratic toward an evolutionary way of life. I'm not saying that can be done right away, etc. I don't have a clear vision of how it would look years from now, but I have an initial vision, which I illustrated with the stairway. Okay? Vision and action. Japanese proverb. We need both a vision of that evolutionary way of life, clearly, not just that metaphor, and action. Specifically, what do we do to move in this direction? Now, believe me, let me make it very clear. I am totally and completely convinced that I have nothing special biologically or anything. I'm no better than anyone else. But I have been fortunate over the years, culturally, that I have learned all kinds of things. That's the difference. But everyone can learn what I have learned. Everyone can move up and do whatever I have done. Okay, here we go now with the emphasis now is going to be on what's the vision? How do you, the emphasis on action. How do you move, given the vision that I've, from that to action? All right, Accentuate the Positive, a song by Bing Crosby, lyrics by Johnny Mercer. And we have to interpret them. And I'm going to relate it to the book. All right, here we go. The first sentence is, the first two sentences, the first two lines are the fundamental ones, but all of the lines I'll show you are important, the entire poem, and we're going to go over that in detail. First line, you got to accentuate the positive. Okay, let me be more systematic about that. On page 93 in our book, a major theorist in sociology, he was one of the very few sociologists who emphasized emotions of all things. That's one of not one of the, that's the key lack. I should say one of, because there's a lot of lacks. A key lack within the social sciences is a lack of emphasis on human emotions. Why? Because there's a crazy idea that somehow if you emphasize emotions, you're being unscientific. So you got to just emphasize the head trip. Terrible, absolutely terrible. How can you learn about human behavior without taking into account emotions? I mean, in an ordinary way, if you're not an academician, it sounds crazy. It is crazy. It is, but it is narrow. It is a perfect example of the bureaucratic emphasis on narrow specialization. Where is there an emphasis on the emotions? Well, music, art, the humanities, in the academic world, language, opera, the things that we go to here, that everyone goes to, entertainment. But academia, forget it. So, by the way, the next book, that's one of the new things I'm doing. I forgot that I was talking about new things. Not only am I going to, not Montreal, but Philadelphia, but I've started a new book. It's going to include the humanities and emotions. This book doesn't, a little bit, but hardly anything. The new book, you'll be interested in the title, and I'm going to read something about it. Just getting away from this for a minute, but I think it's important. Here's the title. EI, parenthesis, Evolutionary Intelligence. A subtitle, A New Interdisciplinary Science of Human Behavior. And let me read the foreword to the new book. Just as AI, or artificial intelligence, is based on the power of computer technology, so is EI, or evolutionary intelligence, guided by the incredible potential power of every single human being who walks the planet. When we learn to transform that potential into actuality, nothing can stand in our way. It is ignorance and not evil that we must conquer. When we do so, we will learn just who we actually are, the jewel of the universe. We will move from pessimism to optimism about the future of the human race, and we will build societies that result beyond our wildest dreams. In addition, we will become more optimistic about ourselves and our world. Personally, we will empower ourselves. That's the emphasis that I have. Through individual development, as we learn to fill up this room and fill up Sarasota, I'm planning to do sessions in different parts of Sarasota over this next year or two. We will be the shining city on the hill here, and we will open up to other places throughout the world. And by the way, having that website goes out to all peoples in the world right now, when people are aware of that this can be an international school for learning what we're learning here, and it will have audio-visual tapes of what we're doing here. An international school that's absolutely free of charge, that will be interactive to the nth degree. That's my vision. I think it can happen. Okay, so that's one of the things I'm doing. But between now and July 1, I have to get 200 sociologists to go along with this new section of the American Social Association, so I'm rather busy until that time. I can't do much. But my first co-author, Tom Savage, who was a Unitarian minister for 20 years and then a police lieutenant here for 25 years, he is deeply into the humanities. he was the one who arranged for that that statue that's kind of controversial, but he organized unconditional surrender to come here. He bought it with a bunch of people. So he's been very active in the community, and he's reads all the time. He knows literature, philosophy, all of them humanity. He's going to introduce famous films. He is writing one. He's already written one of the chapters. Chapter 2 is what he. So that extends the individual from a head trip individual, from a social science individual, social science and humanities. Let me tell you, since I'm talking about that book, I can say a little more about what the book is going to cover. Let's see if I have it here in terms of the chapters. Just a minute. Yeah, I have it. Okay, so chapter 1 will, what we're doing today, summarize the highlights of the session of the book, which focuses on social science and the individual. Okay? Chapter 2. Chapter 1 is visionary. That's what the book is, visionary, not action. Chapter 2 expands the vision, just as I said, from the social science to the humanities. Chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6, action. All 4, action. And 3 and 4, 3 emphasizes, let's see the difference here. I have to remind myself. Oh, I know the difference. 3 is positive, like the first line here. I haven't gotten to the second line. The second line is negative. We have to deal with negatives. So 3 and 4 are the individual, which is what the book, our previous book, emphasized. Very, very important. Then 5 is social. And the example of social, get this, is what I envision. This is big. An EI movement throughout the world, nothing less. EI, I mean AI is all in the newspapers and every place. EI, but not just EI as intelligence. Head, our book emphasizes head, heart, hand. There is heart there in the book, even though it isn't really developed in the humanities way, but it still had the idea of the importance of heart. So 3 and 4 are, 4 is the group EI movement, social movement I'm talking about, like Black Lives Matter, only much, much bigger and wider. 5, no, I'm sorry. Okay, 5 is the social structure. 3 and 4 are the individual. 5 is, but the emphasis on action. 6 is a vision for the world as a whole, not just a movement. What's the future? What is it when I have this stairway, that vague metaphor? What about more specifically? How can we move toward the future? And one of the key things that I see in the future is this. I got to watch my time here. If individuals learn to develop themselves, as we're talking about, what about productivity? Not just going on kayaks here in this move, but people who are working, inventing things, increasing productivity. The seesaw world is based on scarcity. If we have increasing productivity, we have less and less scarcity. Wow. So that is a way of moving away from aggression, because scarcity is the basis for frustration. Get rid of frustration, move away from aggression. So that is All right, so 5 and 6. Okay, I've said enough about that book. Let me get back to this paper you have. And I'm going to have to go over it rather quickly because I'm looking at my watch here. I want to give you plenty of time for discussion. But before, I don't want to forget some important things. To the degree that you believe in any of these ideas, I would implore you to try to bring a friend next time. I want to fill up this room. I'll do my best. But we need to show Plymouth Harbor and Sarasota what's going on here. There are only 12 of us in this room now. We can do better than that. So if you believe in this, please do what you can to get some others to join us. I'm going to do my best to do that as well. Okay. You got to accentuate the positive. Stay with that one line. From a social science perspective, what can we do with that line? Well, Jonathan Turner, a famous sociological theorist who wrote the foreword to this book, his foreword is right here. He has been emphasizing emotions of all things as a sociologist, how rare. And he has two main laws of positive emotional energy. How do we empower ourselves emotionally? Well, right there in that first line. The law of positive emotional energy. I'll read it. When individuals receive positive sanctions from other people and or realize their expectations, fulfill their goals, they will experience positive emotions. Now there it is. This is the basic idea behind that law, that sentence, that line in the poem. The two ways. Well, what that implies is this. To the degree that you can hang out with other people who reinforce you, that helps. To the degree that you fulfill your goals, that's fundamental. The two together, right there in that first line. Let's look at the second line. The whole poem is important. Eliminate the negative. Now, you have to reinterpret that. You can't get rid of all the negative things, but you can, for the time being, reduce their impact. What is the negative? Let me read what Turner says. The law of negative emotional energy. It's obvious with the positive. When individuals receive negative sanctions or fail to realize their expectations, they will experience negative emotion. Now, there's a lot in that is not explicit. We are our own worst enemies most of the time, I think. We're not even aware of how easily we put ourselves down. Every little slip. I do it all the time too. And to become even aware of it, much less doing anything about it, is a big deal. We have work to do to develop ourselves, to transform the negative to a learning experience. What did I learn when I fell down? I was in a hurry. Emotionally, I was angry at something. I didn't watch my step. I learned from it. I didn't come here, oh my God, they're going to see me. What am I going to do? I'm no good, whatever. No way. You can transform the negative into a learning experience. Now, it's easy enough for me to say, yes, you can do this. To actually do this, to counter the habits of a lifetime, that's what we're talking about here in these lines. That's why I'm continuing the seminar over time, And I see it as a workshop. There's a lot of work we have to do in order to be able to accomplish what I'm talking about. I've been spending a lifetime leading up to this, finally. I'm saying everyone can make progress. Not everyone will make the same progress. Like if we're trying to deal with people who are homeless now, obviously that's not the group to emphasize now. But what we can do is emphasize people like ourselves who have some leisure time maybe, who feel somewhat confident about ourselves. We can show the way for others. It's us. I can't do it alone. I need your help desperately. I will do whatever I can. You can help. Now is the time. At this time in history, we are responsible for what happens to the world. There is nothing out there, anything like this. One of my colleagues said, no, don't compare yourself to others. Don't I'm not putting down the tremendous achievements of so many other organizations, not putting them down. There's so many people and so many groups that are trying to do what we're doing. It's wonderful. But what I'm saying, it's not enough. We can be the spearhead, or whatever metaphor you want to use. We can show the way. But we have to all work at it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I'd like to see next time a crowd in here next month. We'll see. That would be one way of telling whether everyone is doing their job, including me. All right, let's keep going with this. Those first two lines are fundamental, and they show those are chapters in that book, the next book that I'm writing, chapters 3 and 4. 3 is positive, 4 is negative. A whole chapter devoted to action. Obviously, in a few words here, I can't do justice to what's involved. And reading the book can help, and the stuff at the bottom of the poem will show the highlights so you can get into it more. All right, let me keep going with the poem. Latch on to the affirmative. Latch on. Wow, what does that mean? Vision. Develop a vision. Positive, negative. A vision of yourself. Latch on and think of the stairway versus the seesaw. That's the best I can do right now, quickly. The vision of the stairway. Now, the fourth. Don't mess with Mr. In Between. Passivity, watching TV over and over, reading over and over, stuff that's not that important. Just waiting for others to solve problems, watching TV, hopefully Biden is going to do this or someone else is going to do that. That's evading your responsibility for action. Okay, so you need the vision. Latch on implies the vision. And then don't mess with Mr. In Between is the passive thing. Okay, now let's look at the second stanza. The second stanza is all about the group, not just the individual. You've got to spread joy up to the maximum. Notice the emphasis on emotions. That's where people are. That's the basis of advertising. Emotions, emotions. Bring gloom down to the minimum. Have faith. Now bring gloom, the first line there is positive, spread joy to the max. Bring gloom down to the minimum. Negative, social. Have faith or pandemonium. Have faith. Now I'm not putting down religion in the least here. Religion is wonderful in so many ways, even though it has had negative things, of course. But faith is a commitment. A commitment that can become a habit. So I'm thinking of, we've got to develop better habits, and that's what that line points toward. have faith. Liable, okay, the negative, pandemonium, liable to walk on the scene. Now, the next stanza is a short one. To illustrate that last remark, well, illustrations are needed. This is general as a poem. We've got to get specific, very specific. There's one couple little illustrations. And some of the studies emphasize concrete examples. That's absolutely fundamental. All right. Jonah in the whale, Noah in the ark. Now, Jonah in the whale points toward biology. And Noah in the ark points toward physical structures. So we're thinking of, if you think of all of the academic world, the biological world and the physical science world, biological science, and what that means for us, what can mean for us is, biologically, we are the only organisms throughout the entire known universe that can evolve. With language, we can evolve within our own lifetime, not just improve, develop, evolve. Wow. We better evolve within our own lifetime. And then Noah in the ark, the nature of the physical universe is interactive. No part of the universe can be separated completely from any other part. There's no such thing as total isolation. And we, as human beings with language, are the most interactive creatures in the known universe. So physically and biologically, we are the jewel of the universe. That's what that stanza does for me. And then the final stanza is just a repetition of the first, which emphasizes the importance for me of habit. We have to, little by little, gradationally move toward changing our present habits toward evolutionary habits. Now, there's a bunch of stuff at the bottom. I don't want to get into that unless you ask me about it, but I want to have the rest of the time for discussion if you're willing to or able to or want to. So, the floor is now open for any and all questions, and you can feel free to challenge anything I've said, totally and completely. That's fine. I welcome it. And now there's a microphone so that you can be, all this is being audiovisual. Take the microphone there.
Individuals going up it. But where do those individuals become leaders? Because you can't just massive individuals that are going to leader or some leaders.
Okay. No, I have. Did you turn it on? To turn it on in order for it to be on the audio visual. It's on? Good, okay. Full question. The overall, my overall way of thinking is, wait a second, let's take one step at a time here. It's easy for us to try to say, okay, how are we going to change the world? What's the new structure of the world? What are you going to do with the present leaders who don't want to give up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And the problem with that is that looks too quickly to what's going to happen. One step at a time. I'm not too sure how to change that. As a matter of fact, I have some ideas. For example, let me give the examples that I have. There have been studies of organizations throughout history in terms of their productivity. And the basic findings from my perspective, from what I understand, is this. that those organizations who emphasized science were more productive than those who did not. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means scientifically, or think in terms of what is the nature of science. It's whatever else it is very interactive. So if you have people in the organization, let's say there's a big organization like Ford, and little by little, people in the organization are starting to develop what we're trying to develop here: emotional power, ability to learn, ability to solve problems better, ability to invent, and so on. So little by little, and see, I'm stretching it out, not immediately. What do you do right away? They learn to innovate. Wow. So Ford can do this as well as that in terms of its competitors. That, hey, it's doing well because the people are more, so that the people underneath start getting more pay because, my God, we need these innovative people. I'm going to pay them more. I want them to do more. And then there's more interaction within the organization. It's not so much top-down. It's more interactive. That's what the studies found. That's more, that fewer and fewer, lesser and lesser hierarchy, not so many levels of hierarchy, less and less, and more and more equal pay. Not equal, but I mean much better in terms of the difference between the pay at the top and the bottom. So what that leads to over time is an organization that is more productive because of its more democratic, interactive approach. Now, keep going in the future. That's as far as we need to go, I think, to see. We don't have to worry about who's going to be the leader so much. But if that happens, then we're getting rid of scarcity. Then, hey, other organizations, how are you doing that? We have to compete or fall down. They're going to have to do the same thing. So what that leads to over time is organizations that have less and less hierarchy, that have less and less of a gap between the pay at the bottom and the top, more and more productivity, less and less scarcity, less and less aggression in the world, etc. Now, I don't say that I have a formula for what's the next step and so on. That's too far in the future. Let's worry about what's close enough to us. So I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but it's, and the person at the top will want to delegate more. Hey, this person can do things that better than I can learn from him or her, or she can do things that I was previously doing, and this group can take over this. So it becomes more interactive, more effective, more scientific, more powerful, more productive, less scarcity. That's the only way I can answer that. It's not. I'm not just talking about my own idea. These are studies that I can cite. Okay. Get it on.
What you said. My background is education and job placement. And what I've done, and still teach them this. If you teach them how the workplace time that they can the people in the workplace, and that is the whole thing. So back to human development again.
Let me, no,
I need that.
add to it. Is this. That the first, our bureaucratic way of life, I'm not thinking of you, I'm criticizing everyone here. We're all into a bureaucratic way of life. What that means is that we're outward oriented. What are we going to do with that, with that, with that? Not with, the first step is ourselves. Unless we can demonstrate the power of these interdisciplinary ideas in ourselves in terms of our own vision and action, forget it. We're not going to influence anyone else. So if you talk about the workplace, okay, how are we going to change the workplace? No one is going to change the workplace unless there's a we that can begin to have the power to have an influence on the workplace by demonstrating within ourselves that we can, in fact, develop ourselves. So the easiest thing in the world is to think, okay, how do we change externally? Because the whole way of life is outward there. The power supposedly is out there. There's the president. There's the leaders of the world. How are we going to change them? No. How are we going to change ourselves is the question. So what you're illustrating is what all of us illustrate. We don't focus on ourselves. The whole emphasis of the bureaucratic way of life is outward oriented. And you can see that in the book. Ouspensky is one of the readings. Outward, 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 outward. Okay, the floor is still open. Please contradict, challenge, tell me it's no good. Yes.
In some
Wait.
ways- In some ways, it seems to me that as the individual works on himself, that he can have the tendency to become bureaucratic, which enforces the necessity for multidisciplinary organization. But in the organization, the entire path is becoming circular. Now, I know this sounds very strange, but in the that goal requires organization, and you're therefore becoming more bureaucratic in either the same way or a new way.
Okay. So that is not something that's going to appeal to is to get off the damn seesaw. Putting someone else down, you have to stay down with them. Pretty much. Holding them down. Well, what kind of a life is that? If the potential is there, and there we have demonstrated, you can come on board. We have demonstrated that there is no limit. You You happen to be a CEO, you're vice president, you're president, you're this or that. You are fulfilling your potential only this much. There's a world you can continue to develop, especially since if you're a CEO, you have opportunities to find the time to focus on yourself. If I'm going to an organization and doing a speech there, and the leader says, how can I get my employees to blah, blah, blah? I say, get yourself started first. Forget your employees. Once you develop, that's going to change everything. It's not your employees, it's you. Or if Biden were inviting me, I say, Biden, get on the stick. That's the key thing, really, is individual development. Now, I like your questions because we are so deeply into that seesaw way of life. It's so hard to envision the stairway. My God, it's just like, what kind of a world is that? I mean, I can point toward a stairway, but that's chapter 6 in the new book, which I haven't done. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. But at least it'll be a better vision of a future world, better than in this book, which was almost nothing there. One of my colleagues is a PhD at Columbia, Neil. And I said, look, Neil, you're an economist. He's a PhD economist. Try to figure out something specific about the economic system that can help us to envision a future world. So chapter 6 is something yet to be written. But I should. You see, what you want is very important. Even if I have a vague notion of beyond the stairway, what kind of a world is it? Something is needed. And maybe you can help. Maybe you can figure out more. Well, what is the next step toward a structure which doesn't, and one of my colleagues is saying, wait a second, you don't want to ruffle the feathers of the people who are the leaders of all the organizations by saying, you're gone. No, you don't want to do that. But you do want to open up to their possibilities when they get on this possibility. Imagine the potential, if I'm right, of infinite personal development. The leaders are in the best position to continue to develop because they have the time, they have the energy, they have the money. There's no limit to what they can do. You know, everyone, they have a family, they have problems, they have problems personally, physically, whatever. They're human beings. They go to the bathroom like the rest of us. If you can appeal to them in terms of, hey, look what's up, what's waiting for you, what's possible for you, wow. Then not suddenly, okay, I'm going to give up my leadership. No, but they can move in this direction. One step at a time. Okay, we still have some time, not much, because there's have to end this, another thing coming in. Or maybe I should end a little earlier if we don't have questions. Good, okay.
On that stairway.
Let me say specifically, the difference between the previous book and the next book and what are you going to do with it? It's focusing on your own development. That if individuals who are prejudiced, let's say they are deeply prejudiced, and they see their possibilities, the only reason why they see their possibilities is that they see it in you, and you are reaching out to them. You're not saying, God, look what you're doing. No, you're saying, look what I'm doing. Come in. You can do the same thing. And the idea is ignorance is the problem, not evil. So, here's Trump here. I'm not putting him down. I'm saying, I'm seeing him as someone who is ignorant, has been ignorant of how to develop self, so he puts everyone else down. And so I'm not putting him down. I'm saying, Mr. Trump, look at what I've done. Look what these people here have done. Look what you can do yourself. Not that he will want to, I've deliberately picked a difficult problem here. I know. But so it's not going to work so easily with him. But one step at a time. There are millions of people who have voted for him, who don't believe that Biden is the president. We shouldn't put them down. We should communicate with them about what we are doing and what they can do. So I think it can work. I really do. Final question, if there is any. Okay, thank you. Please try to get other people to come in next month, the second Tuesday, and on the second Tuesday of next month, 2 to 3:30, and you can, the website, let me emphasize the website. The website is really good. If you have the internet, just look at the website, that's fine. And feel free to communicate with me if you have any questions. And mainly, if you can communicate with other people in this room, that's great. But follow what I've been trying to follow, what I was talking about here today, in terms of your own personal development is the first and most important thing. What I would love for you to do between now and next time is to work on your own development and come back next month with questions as well as answers about how it worked, how it didn't work. But unless we have a workshop here where this is just a beginning here, that what you do between now and next month is the crucial thing. Can it work? You can find out. You can try it, test it. Tell me that it, give me examples next month about why it's not working or why it is working. Help us all to learn more how we can develop ourselves. That's it. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
I think this needs a new battery. It's too weak.
Oh, you think so? Yeah. All right, I'll tell them.
It should have been more forceful when they used it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I
Oh, my
appreciate your help.
pleasure. I was going to say, but I decided not to spoil the somber mood. I saw a cartoon which reminded me of something that you said, Bernie, about, if we don't evolve positively, we're just going to disappear. So the cartoon shows a UFO manned by aliens, right? And the captain in charge says, "We're about to pass Earth. Make sure the hatches are all solidly closed."
Yeah.
Because we're obviously not a paradigm for the rest of the rest of the world. And now there's a lot of talk about unexplained, UFOs. I'm not worried about them. Frankly, we're doing such a rotten job ourselves. I'm thinking maybe we can learn something.
Very good, very good. Wow.
I want to go get your card on the website.
Well,
You have to find your platform where you are now in order to be able to improve yourself and to take action to improve yourself. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, what am I now in terms of what I can be?
that's the way to think, exactly. And what can help you is look at the website, do the reading, think about this, because you need the vision of yourself, wow, you have incredible potential. Your whole way of life has, you've learned to put yourself down. The same for me. So little by little, don't rush yourself. Make a little progress. Don't put yourself down. You see, that's the second. It's so easy to put your, hey, I'm not evolving. What's wrong?
I do. I call myself a dummy. I say,
See,
oh, Nancy, you dummy, why did
See,
you do
that's
that?
terrible.
Oh, I know it is. But
Turn it around. Use it as a learning experience.
I will. I try to, yes.
Well, little by little.
Yeah.
Don't rush it. It takes time.
But this is very philosophical. You're opening up a lot of avenues for self-analysis and for perhaps conglomerative analysis. You know?
People like Socrates, all throughout history, they said, know yourself.
Yes.
And so many quotes and major people said the same thing, but they haven't had the vision or the action. The vision, they've had a little vision, but not, they, see, even sociologists haven't gone that far in terms of the fundamental assumptions of the way of life, the seesaw stairway. They've gone as far as bureaucratic organizations, but they didn't take the next step. That's the new paradigmatic sociology that I'm trying to start, is let's take the next step. So, listen, I am optimistic. I think we can do it.
Good.
I think we can do it. I really do. Because we have the tremendous potential. It's in us. But it's lying there because we've developed the habits of being outward oriented and not paying attention to our possibilities. It's there. It's not as if we have to manufacture it. We've got it. We've got to release it. We've got to open it up. The key to it. We can do it.
Open the spigots.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad you had questions, because not too many people were asking questions.
Nobody. I know. Well, you know, this coming here makes me think. I haven't been thinking.
What's your name?
Nancy von Lazar.
Okay, I'll remember that.
My ex-husband was a professor at Tufts.
Oh, what did he
of
teach?
Political science.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
No wonder you're asking these questions.
Well,
What did you do?
I was a writer. I wrote for the University of North Carolina.
I
was
went to
in
the University of North Carolina.
You did?
That was my first job.
It was.
Yes, I was a research assistant professor. I have an article, a major article based on why, what causes medical students to choose one specialty versus another.
That's interesting. What a great question. A very good sociologist.
Well, the way I approached it, it took me 6 years to analyze it, because the other people were they weren't doing a great job in the research. But what I found out was it's possible to make predictions of human behavior. There were 2,500 medical students throughout the country that were involved in a huge questionnaire. The deans were pushing them to have this big questionnaire because the Public Health Association was sponsoring this, a multi-million-dollar research. But the key thing was this: human behavior can be predicted. It's rational. This is what Einstein was saying.
It can be.
It can be. It
Yeah,
can be.
Hey, Betty, don't leave. Wait.
Anyway, no, I'm finished. So it was a major study, but
Well, that's very fascinating that it can be predicted, but I suppose in some ways it can be. It is rational, yeah.
we are rational, basically.
We definitely are, yeah.
Okay,
Well, I've got to tell you, there is it's not a medication, but it's a product that's in the beauty field.
Okay.
And if you get it, you can rub it on your bruises, and the bruises will disappear if you're vain enough.
I'm getting a lot of medical attention too.
Oh, I'm
It'll
sure
work.
you are, but
But
they're-
what
they don't-
what is maybe I should try that.
It's called dermabrasion, not a dermabrasion. It's
I'll try it.
golly, I gotta write it. I gotta
Derma.
derma. I don't know. Beauty products, derma. Google it. Here's my.
Okay, beauty okay,
That's my
thanks.
card.
Okay, beauty products.